Today in Across the Fence, a way to help farmers and landowners generate income. We'll learn about a new grower's guide that spells out the best practices for cultivating shiitake mushrooms. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. A little over 3 years ago on this program, we told you about the beginning of an effort to help grow shiitake mushrooms in the Northeast. The effort was a partnership between the University of Vermont Extension, Cornell Extension, and contributing farmers in New York and Vermont. The idea was to teach farmers and landowners how to grow shiitakes as a way to make money and to diversify farm and forestry businesses. Well, 3 years of research and education have paid off. The partners in research have just produced a grower's guide for people who want to explore shiitake mushroom cultivation on their own land. It is a free online publication. We'll tell you how you can get it, but first, I want to introduce one of the principal researchers and educators behind the project. Ben Waterman is part of UVM Extension Center for Sustainable Agriculture, where he serves as the coordinator of the Beginning Farmer Program. It's great to see you again. Tell me a little bit about how this all became together as far as this new guide and some of the basics of shiitake mushroom production.
Well, this, as you mentioned, this project has been going on for about 3 years now. So we brought together about 25 farmers throughout the Northeast, and they participated in a research project where we were looking at the basics of production. We're looking at, on the production side, what were the best log species for shiitake mushroom production. We're also looking at, is this a commercially viable enterprise? So we're looking at the variables that go into producing shiitake mushrooms as a business. So the basics of production really start with a good source of hardwood logs. It really just starts with introducing the fungus into the logs. So the goal is you're trying to outcompete all other types of fungus. And so you're drilling a bunch of small holes in the logs and plugging them with the fungus. And then the logs go, as our guide is showing there, they go out and they're stacked in the forest where they just sit and wait for about a year. And then after that, it's really just all fun and games. You can advantage of shiitake mushroom production is you can actually force the logs to fruit. So the logs are dunked in cold water for 24 hours, and then 7 days later, you get mushrooms popping out.
That's amazing. So how is this log-based production different from other types of mushroom growing systems?
Well, this is primarily all outdoors, as opposed to indoors in climate-controlled conditions. So this is really as much about forest management as it is about just the actual mushroom production. So it's often a component of an overall forest management plan. So for example, you could have a scenario where a woodlot owner is thinning out their woodlot, sort of opening up the canopy for higher value trees, and they can use the lesser value tree, the thinned out trees, for mushroom production.
And so how many mushrooms can you get from one log?
You can get about a pound. We're talking about a log maybe a 4 foot length and maybe 4 to 6 inches diameter, and you get about half a pound per log, and that's a lot of money. Mushrooms don't weigh a lot, so that's a lot of mushrooms.
That is. And so, is this a commercially viable enterprise?
It is. Our research project demonstrated that over about half of the growers who participated became profitable in just the second year of production. So they're getting a pretty good price for the mushrooms. They are a more fresh mushroom. They're perceived as locally grown and fresh, so they're getting a premium price between $12 to $18 a pound, making it a commercially viable enterprise for many.
And so who's buying these mushrooms?
It really ranges. On the wholesale front, it's even small grocery stores or restaurants. Chefs really love them because mushrooms really amplify flavor of everything else they're cooking. They can really detect sort of the subtle differences in flavor of the shiitake mushrooms that are grown on the logs.
Wow. Well, as I mentioned at the start of the program, this is an effort that began 3 years ago in the summer of 2010. Across the Fence was there for the beginning when Keith Silva filed this report.
This is Nick Laskowski.
Hi.
And this is how he grows shiitake mushrooms. Shiitakes need to be woken up in order to fruit. It's called shocking the logs.
I like it actually if the log has sort of a decent impact with the water, just to vibrate it and quote unquote shock it a bit.
Shiitake mushrooms have been grown in China and Japan for centuries. The traditional method for growing shiitakes is to use sawn logs from the shi tree and place them alongside logs already growing the mushrooms or containing shiitake spores. Shiitake mushrooms are now cultivated across the globe. Low in calories and high in vitamins B and C, these mushrooms are renowned for their flavor, versatility in cooking, and they even have medicinal qualities. At Dana Forest Farm, Laskovsky uses sugar maples and beech trees to grow his mushrooms. Using sustainable forest management practices, the trees are harvested, cut into logs, and stacked. This process ensures that the logs are dead in preparation to receiving the shiitake spores.
You won't see shiitakes growing on fresh trees because they have sort of an antifungal component, which doesn't allow mushrooms to grow on fresh trees. Once that log dies, but it's still fairly sterile, so I take the log and I'll drill, say, about 50 holes into the log, space it around 4 inches or so, and that just sort of is spreading the spawn and giving it as much surface area to be able to bond. Once the holes are drilled, then I cover the holes in food-grade cheese wax. That seals in moisture. It helps protect from competitive fungus. It usually takes about a year for a log to become fully colonized, so they're hanging out for a while. Given the weather, given climatic conditions, will basically determine how well these logs become colonized. Once that colonization occurs, then the logs are ready for fruiting.
Laskovsky is part of a 3-year study in collaboration with the University of Vermont Extension's Center for Sustainable Agriculture and Cornell University. The goal of this project is to increase the cultivation of shiitake mushrooms in northern New England. Laskovsky received a grant from SARE, the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program. The grant allows him to host workshops that provide hands-on learning opportunities for the production and management methods needed to grow shiitakes.
If I were to say, break down the pricing for 20 logs, a stack like this would cost you about $25 in spawn, $30 for a tool. You have to consider the chainsaw that you'd need to cut the trees down. You could do a stack like this for probably $100 if each log were to produce a pound of mushrooms over its, say, per year, which might be exaggerating a little bit, say half pound to a pound of mushrooms. And you were able to sell that mushroom pound for $15 a pound, multiply that times 20 per year. So what's that, 20? So $300 for a $100 investment. So it's a 200% return. Obviously, $300 isn't really that much, but that's where this might really be able to play into a supplemental type hobby, if you will.
At $1 an ounce, Laskovsky's hobby is literally starting to pay off.
I had my first mushroom sale yesterday, so it worked out, yeah.
You had your first mushroom sale yesterday of all time?
Not of all time, but as Dana Forest Farm.
I've got this little claim to fame of being his first customer.
Charlie Menard is the executive chef at the Inn at the Round Barn Farm in Waitsfield. The inn is located a few miles from Laskovsky's farm.
As a chef, I'm constantly looking for the highest quality, freshest product that I can get. Next, as a Vermonter, as a native Vermonter, it's really important to me to really kind of support the local economy and support our neighbors. And lastly, I'm involved in the hospitality, tourism, essentially tourism business. And as an ambassador of sorts to that, I really love to be able to deliver as much of Vermont as I can. And of course, we're known for our, Vermont cheese. We're known for our maple syrup. But, to be able to say to somebody, these mushrooms were grown right up the road, really puts us forward, really shows us as a progressive, forward-thinking community.
There are only a handful of shiitake growers in Vermont. It's a niche market that Laskovsky and others are hoping will bear fruit in the years to come.
really we're right in our impetus. Dana Forest Farm started last year, and it takes a year for these logs to be ready for fruiting. We're just getting into that stage where these logs are going to be producing for the first time. And next year I'll have twice as many logs that are going to be ready, and at that same time I'll inoculate more and sort of continually add to this operation. There's close to 800 logs here currently, and my plan is to do at least 500 to 1,000 logs each year, maybe until I reach 10,000 or until I get bored of it, one or the other.
As the saying goes, all good things come to those who wait. For mushroom devotees waiting for Vermont-grown shiitake mushrooms, the wait is almost over. Almost. In Waitsfield, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
If you're just joining us, we're exploring a new guide for growing shiitake mushrooms in the Northeast. Ben, what are growers going to find in this guide?
Well, this is the culmination of 3 years of research and education working with 25 growers of shiitake mushrooms throughout the Northeast. So we do summarize our research results in the guide. For example, what are the best log species for shiitake mushroom production? And there's also a lot of practical information. There's a lot of tips from the growers with whom we worked. And so there's really the whole spectrum of A to Z, from production to marketing, and really practical advice and tips that are specific to production in the Northeast.
Mm-hmm. And so once again, talk a little bit about sort of the demand for these, because people might think, well, mushrooms grown in Vermont, does that make sense? But it does.
Yeah, it really does, especially in the context of a forest management strategy. We've got a lot of woods here in Vermont, a lot of hardwood log species that we can add value to. So there is a growing demand for fresh log-grown shiitakes, and it's making a lot of sense for a lot of landowners and a lot of farmers.
If people are interested in considering starting one of these programs, what are some of the things that they're going to need right off the bat?
Well, we've mentioned a good source of hardwood logs, and aside from that, really key is year-round shade, so a good spot in the forest where there's a good evergreen canopy for year-round shade. Another key is having a good source of water. It just makes your life a lot easier if you have a source of cold water very near to where your logs are stacked, so you can just throw the logs into the cold water and take them back out and put them back in the stacks. Mm-hmm. There's some specialty tools that are available. There's, for example, a drill bit that's manufactured in Japan where there's a lot of shiitake production, and that enables you to achieve efficiencies in production.
Mm-hmm. And so it sounds like once you get going with this, it's pretty self-sustaining.
It is. It's a lot of work in the beginning. There's a lot of work cutting down trees and managing your logs and inoculating them. But once they're set, it's really a waiting game. It's really a delight to actually harvest the mushrooms, and then actually your logs will last many years. Depending on the size of the log, you can get maybe 2 to 4 years of production out of them.
Wow. And so do you have to worry about anything that would either attack the mushrooms, or are there predators that would eat them, or what are some of the biggest concerns when it comes to challenges like that?
Yep, because often the dark places in your woods are often the wettest, and we do get a lot of rain in the Northeast, so slugs are often a problem. So a good strategy is just to keep the logs off the ground, maybe put them on some crushed stone where the slugs don't like crawling over. There's some other pests. We cover the basic problems. It's kind of like any other crop or vegetable that you're growing. There's going to be some pests. We go over the strategy to contain them. It's really there's not a lot to worry about.
So basically, any question that anyone who's growing mushrooms has been answered here.
Yeah, basically. I mean, the common problems that you find in the Northeast, common challenges, we go through all of the strategies that are used by growers to overcome those limitations.
And so if people are interested in getting this guide, what should they do?
They can contact me directly at UVM Center for Sustainable Agriculture. They can go on our website. For now, it's just an online publication, so they can go on our website, uvm.edu/sustainable agriculture, and just click on the resources tab. So it's listed there, people feel free to contact me with any further questions. After they've read the guide and they have a specific question, they can contact me. Or we have a listserv. We have a community of growers. Over 100 growers are on this email list, and there's some informal conversations going back and forth. It's a great way to share information.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
That's our program for today. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.